Yeah, dynamic range. I get so many hundreds of emails like every month asking about I went to photos to photons and I was comparing the dynamic range from wah 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 camera to wah wah wah. Now let's consider three important things here so far as image. Yeah, dynamic range. Yeah. Sensor saturation and image fidelity. Yeah. Now, what if you had a camera with like more dynamic range than any other camera out there? Just like new sensor technology. The photo sites were huge. Yeah, and it was even a high megapixel. Man, and nothing on Earth came close to it in dynamic range. Nothing. Yeah, not even a medium format camera. Wouldn't that be nice? And then you slap on, not this lens, you slap on there like this high element count lens, and you're going to do, I need to do black and white photography. That's what I want to do. Yep. So you got a camera with great dynamic range. Do ambient light photography. You're going to do some outdoor black and white photography. Man, this camera's going to nail it. It's got a lot of dynamic range. Yeah, but micro contrast is the worst word in the world. And it's all about low gain intertonal SNR, signal to noise ratio. I laugh my fanny off, and I will debate anybody on this earth that thinks that micro contrast is like a myth or a creation or a phantasm. They are completely clueless. You want to talk about contrast and how many lines per millimeter? Yeah, you could take the best artist in the world, right? And he could do like a line drawing of like a beautiful person. Just like, might take him 6 hours, right? It's like, wow, my God, look at that. Look at all those lines. It's just like the best piece. Yeah, a line drawing, right? He made thousands of little lines for the hairs and the eyelashes, and man, the lines per millimeter are really high. But do you know what make it jump off the page? Yeah, it's when you actually hold that pencil, this is a pencil, and like hold it sideways and start to shade it, and then like take your thumb, like black and white or charcoal artists will do, and they'll smear and they'll give tonality. Wow! And then it jumps off the page. That is image fidelity, folks. So if you have the best imaginary camera in the world with the best dynamic range, it beats every other camera. You slap some like high element count lens on the camera there. You do some black and white photography. Well, this camera will do it. It's got the best dynamic range in the whole world. Yeah, but you stuck a bad image fidelity lens on your camera. Yeah, and the low gain intertonal detail was not that good. Yeah, not that good. So how important was your dynamic range of that magical new camera as opposed to an incredible image fidelity lens? Yeah, that gives the low gain intertonal details. And man, you could see it in the blacks, and man, you could see it in the highlights. That's where you could really see it, and that's what makes the image pop. They used to call it Zeiss pop, they call it lens pop, they call it micro contrast, which is the worst word in the world. It should be called, what I've coined it, accurately, image fidelity. Yeah? Remember back in the day they installed Dolby stereo and they'd crank up, when the movie was sort of like, wow! You knew you had something there, and that's what a really fine high image fidelity lens does for you. And it's more important than the dynamic range of that camera. Now let's talk about the other half of that, which has to do with this neat little thing. It's cost like $150, not this particular one, but like a Godox 685, right? Sensor saturation. What's more important than the dynamic range of your camera? Well, actually control over your highlights and shadows, and you're supposed to be, as a photographer, not just be able to turn the dials, but be in control of the highlights and the shadows, if you can have control of the highlights and shadows. This is the reason why in bright sunlight, it's still important to have a speed light. Yeah? Sensor saturation. You know why images look better with flash? Man, it's a flash shot. Man, it looks so much better. But why does it look better? Oh, well, it's a flash shot. It's like, well, you just repeated yourself. Why does the image look better when using flash? Sensor saturation. What do you get with sensor saturation? Ooh, you get tonality. And you get color saturation. And the image pops. And actually, sensor saturation can overcome a moderately bad or moderately okay image fidelity lens. So tell me once again how great and important it is, and it is to a certain extent in certain circumstances, how great and how important is the dynamic range of that magical new camera you got. If you're using a crummy lens with no image fidelity and you don't believe in flash photography. And then, of course, you're just... you're at the whims of whatever sort of ambient light that you have. Well, man, I don't care. I am an ambient light photographer, and this is the best dynamic range camera on Earth. It's like, that's wonderful, but the images still look flat and dull. And you could drag that saturation slider in Photoshop or Capture One all you want. Whoa! And it still looks like hell, doesn't it? So, the next time you're so perpetually concerned, like the emails that I get all the time about dynamic range comparing one model to another, why don't you consider using a really high image fidelity lens and, as often as possible, this neat new invention they came up with called flash. They should be called xenon tube devices because it doesn't matter if it's a $2,000 studio strobe or a $150 Godox. They all got one thing in common, a xenon tube. Yeah, xenon tube. And what does that xenon tube do? In one average, depending on the power output, in 1/20,000th of a second, it will saturate, boom, your composition. And the reflectance off of all the colors and the tonality and the creases and the shadows and the highlights pop back through the lens, yeah, because it's good gain, yeah. A flash adds gain to the light because it reflects off your subject, yeah, all the intertonal details, and it passes through the lens, and it makes its way to the sensor for good impact. Sensor saturation. Sensor saturation is easily 10 times more important than the dynamic range of that new camera. And that's not my opinion. It's a fact. And this, folks, is one of the countless videos that I make that you will not hear any other YouTuber photography channel talking about. Why don't they talk about it? Because they don't know. And knowing is half the battle, right? Isn't that something we had back in school? Knowing is half the battle. What was the wise person once said? I forget. I think it was in a movie. He's like, I'm not afraid of what I know. I'm afraid of what I don't know. Wise words, right? Yeah. Old Uncle Kenny knows. That's right. Because Uncle Kenny is a lot smarter than them other guys on the tubes. Yeah. Now, he may be fat, bold, and ugly, and he may be rough around the edges, but he's a lot smarter and definitely a lot wiser. Thank you.